We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Democrats want to impeach Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Well, of course they do. Wheels are in motion in the upper echelons of Joe Biden's party that if Thomas doesn't recuse himself from certain cases, well, it's all political theater at the expense of the Supreme Court's reputation. Now, joining us for this jaunt through the minds of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, grab onto your hats, is Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor and host of the excellent Uprising podcast, Mr. Scott DeCosenza, Esquire. Welcome back, Scott.
Thank you, Mark, and the squad, too. And just for Justice Thomas, in case he's listening, he also has the option to resign, according to those folks as well. He doesn't have to recuse
That's very
himself.
magnanimous of them, I believe. Yeah, my last count is there's 27 Democrats who are presently on call for this move. And, of course, the more left-leaning media seem to be giving it quite a lot of credence. Now, let's get to the details first, Scott. Can it happen?
Well, so let's divide. You said 27. Was that the right count?
That's the latest count that I've got, yeah.
There are not all of those people say that Justice Thomas must resign or be impeached. That's the sort of squad level wish list, right? I mean, there are still some who are just on the recusal train.
Presumably, Scott, though, that comes with a proviso, right? That if he doesn't decide to recuse himself, and it's only he that can recuse himself, or maybe Chief Justice John Roberts can recommend that he recuse himself, I believe. But if he doesn't, then the threat is impeachment.
It's out there, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about it. So how one impeaches a Supreme Court justice is how one impeaches a president of the United States. And since we just went through that with Donald Trump.
Along partisan lines, okay.
We just went through it with Donald Trump, of course, so it should be relatively familiar. There's a bill that goes through the Congress, a bill of impeachment. And if a simple majority of congresspersons says that they want to impeach Justice Thomas, then he will be quote unquote impeached. Then
that's in the House, and then
it's in the House of Representatives, and then the question becomes: will he be removed from office? To be removed from office, they'll have to muster a 2/3 vote against him in the U.S. Senate to remove him from office. So that's how it could happen. It's not going to happen, of course, Mark, because I just said 2/3 vote in the Senate, which means that 15, 16, 17, depending on who's voting all in. Voters, Republican senators in the Senate would have to vote to remove Justice Thomas from office, which I doubt you could get more than one or three, but I can't imagine a universe where more than 10 Republican senators vote to remove Justice Thomas from office, largely because of the political activities of his wife.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So Virginia Ginny Thomas, she exchanged text messages, or sent text messages at least, to Mark Meadows, who I believe is former chief of staff under Donald Trump, regarding the activities on January 6th.
Well, these texts started just after Election Day, as I understand it. The texts have been leaked to some legacy media types by, we presume, members of the January 6th House Committee.
Let's just delve into that a second, because that is the presumption, isn't it? But
so this is all about.
Was there anybody else who had access?
I think we should just reset the frame here for a second. What is this about? This is about leveraging that information against Justice Thomas to the benefit of these Democrats. So the information was leaked primarily by the most prominent Washington newspaper and I think CBS News. And they didn't actually publish all these text messages. They've just published excerpts that are presumably the most damning. And I say presumably because presumably the whole effort to leak and publish them was a political effort rather than a news reporting effort. Now, the thing that I think is just interesting, Mark, is when I first came in contact with the material in terms of looking at the quotes and reading the stories about the quotes by the people who've read not just what's been released, but what's been held back, is do any of these text messages between Ginny Thomas and Mark Meadows, do they all mention Justice Clarence Thomas or the work of the Supreme Court? Because that's when it would become an issue that would affect Justice Thomas on the court, right? If they're saying, well, if she says, I can get Clarence to vote any way I want because I'm his wife or something along those lines, which, of course, it doesn't say anything like that to the best of our knowledge. It just discusses her wishes for how Meadows and Trump and regular Republican types can sort of work against Democrats.
Which is what you'd expect from somebody who is a conservative activist, I guess.
So the other thing about Virginia Thomas is that she didn't just recently discover her political activism or something like that. When she met Justice Thomas, she was already a committee person for a very high-ranking Republican at the time, Dick Armey. So she was on Dick Armey's staff, and so she's always been in the political game. It just, and she and Justice Thomas have stated basically that he's not aware of the, every jot and tittle of her political organizing and campaigning, and she is not apprised of the intimacies of his work on the court.
Okay, so let's talk about the reasoning behind this. Now, clearly there's political gain for Democrats here if they can talk about impeaching and removing a sitting United States Supreme Court justice. But you and I have discussed this prior to our chat here, Scott, and I guess we both figure that this is perfect for raising money. It's a dollar win situation, isn't it?
Well, we talked about AOC's tweets, which kind of expanded the window of acceptable analysis on this for Democrats, which was pushing impeachment. And where's the downside for somebody like AOC? Are people who consider Justice Thomas a beloved and sage counsel on our highest court going to support AOC in electoral endeavors? Not bloody likely, right? Not going to write her checks or anything like that. Meanwhile, all the people that dislike Justice Thomas will flock to her and buoy her with support in all manner of speaking, both sort of the intangible supports and perhaps dollar checks as well. And also it gets to distract her constituents who are no doubt feeling the pinch of this horrible inflation and other crushing policies that she's advanced as she runs for re-election. She can turn their attention from something that's a negative to something that she can, get on the soapbox about.
I think the thing that concerns me about this new round of talks about Clarence Thomas is that it kind of opens the door in some ways from these people who want him removed to say that, well, if we can't get him off the bench, then we need to mitigate the damage that he does. And that brings back talk of court packing, which I think even the report that President Biden had commissioned said that this was an untenable situation because of the partisanship and division and essentially the never-ending stop. So if we appoint 13 now, the next lot will appoint 23, and then we'll end up with 10,000. Or in fact, everybody will be on the Supreme Court bench, Scott, including yourself.
Well, Mark, that will be a fine day to be sure. Even as I join my fellow, I don't know, we'll have to get to 50,000 justices maybe by the time that we'll see.
But you do own a Jabbit, which I believe puts you head and shoulders above most.
I hadn't thought of that. Yes. I just don't see how court packing is still alive. And what I mean by that is the president's own commission gave a sort of tepid response to court packing. And where is this political groundswell that's going to really motivate this change? I don't think that this is pretty thin gruel that, Justice Thomas's wife did something, and so now we have to pack the court. I just don't see the impetus there. And I'm not talking about my own political proclivities. I'm talking about the Democrats that will need to vote for this, to put another justice on the court. It just doesn't seem like it's that's very likely to happen. And then face the voters in November, right? So it's like
well, that's what it's all about.
It's not like there's 2 years to smooth over their blatantly political court packing. It's like, I mean, to get it done, we're now, April's upon us, and how is this all going to get done and run a campaign? I don't know. I don't see that as a political possibility, really.
Okay, so back to Ginny Thomas. So she's sent these messages, and a lot of people have frowned on it, whether they were outlandish or not. But people seem to be ignoring other aspects, such as Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Well, Mark, what gave you the idea that there could be an issue there? Could it be my?
Well, I believe you may have a little tale for us, Scott.
In LibertyNation.com, I wrote about Justice Sotomayor's issues with politics, and the reason why I brought it up, of all the justices, Mark, she is far and away the most politically active with her pronouncements and actions. And I think that if Democrats or the squad members or whoever, some collection of Democrats goes after Clarence Thomas in any successful move, not to impeach him, but to initiate impeachment proceedings, then I think that Republicans, we've just seen it now with the Ketanji Brown Jackson hearings, they will not let bygones be bygones when one of their justices is attacked. They paid back the attack on Kavanaugh in spades against Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I think the same thing would be true with Justice Sotomayor. That's a long way around to say if these things get heated into a impeachment campaign, why not then shouldn't Sonia Sotomayor be impeached? In Clarence Thomas's case, we have some communications that his wife made that we don't even know if he even knew about before he read about them in the newspaper, okay? Much less that he discussed them with her at the time. With Sonia Sotomayor, there is no third party involved. It's her own political behavior. She told some University of Texas law students that they should oppose abortion politically. She also sent messages of goodwill to other candidates. Basically, you're supposed to shed your team Democrat bona fides when you get on the court, or team Republican bona fides. But Sonia Sotomayor seems to have doubled down on hers rather than walking away from them.
Well, of course, we won't see things come to that, I'm sure, because this is Joe Biden. He is a unity president. Scott DeCosenza, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
And that's almost it for this episode of Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. My sincere thanks to our guests, Andrew Moran, Kelly Ballard, Tim Donner, and Scott Cosenza. And of course, my thanks to you, the listeners, for taking the time to join us. Now, my parting shot for this week. Will Rogers, he once said, if you ever injected truth into politics, you'd have no politics. Well, it seems to me that we may have reached this point already. There appears to be not a single instance where the truth is not crafted to fit the narrative, where almost everything that comes from our politicians and our activist media has a predetermined spin. But it's by becoming wary and decoding that spin, starting to understand the end game, that all of these machinations that we encounter can finally be unraveled. We can finally be open and aware of real truth. And once that floodgate opens, there's really no going back. Thanks for joining me. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We're doing it for real, really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for LibertyNation.com.
I think we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style, fight for freedom.
The tracking poll sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and
I
others.
can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Getting noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.